join me in welcoming Dr. Tracy D.
Appreciate that. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. Hopefully you can hear me. My voice is soft. Typically it's soft unless you're my child. Then it's not so soft. So if you do have a problem to hear me, just let me know and I'll use my mom voice a little bit louder. I would ask, just so that my staff can know that I am actually away and not just, on the beach where I really like to be as well. If someone can volunteer just to take a picture of me and send it to me afterwards, and I'm going to have it tweeted out a little bit later, so I say, okay, we have a volunteer. Thank you so much for doing that. So that it's proof I am actually working. I'm not just off campus working remotely. It is, again, a pleasure to be invited to this higher ed innovation conference and convening of presidents and all of us in higher education to talk about the work we've done at Southwest. So I'm going to go quickly through a presentation that's going to encompass everything that we've done in 6 years. I started at Southwest Tennessee Community College in 2015, and we have just been running really quickly. Dr. Darden talked about the urgency of what we do, and that's one of the reasons why we've tried to pack so much in to what we've done, because it's really an urgent situation. I don't know. This is supposed to work? Sometimes. So I have a really nice video. It's so cute, and it looks like you might not be able to see it. That's unfortunate, but that's okay. We're going to keep going. So, give you the setting. So, Memphis, Tennessee. You've heard probably a lot of things about Memphis, Tennessee. Hopefully, many of them are great things about Memphis, Tennessee. Again, I live in Memphis. I've been there for 6 years. I'm from St. Louis, which is just right down the street from Memphis, actually, 4 hours away, actually. Home of the blues, Elvis. Graceland is like a convening every August, Elvis's birthday. Barbecues everywhere. It's great. It really is great. And Beale Street. The music is just wonderful. When I first arrived there, I could just hang out there, just listening to music and just seeing all the different people, interesting folks coming from all around. But unfortunately, there's also some negative sides of Memphis. High unemployment rate, high poverty rate, generational poverty, and one of the things that has struck me really, I've devoted my career to really working at urban community colleges, and Memphis has really been one that I've not seen a city where there's been this degree of just abject poverty for generations, and so that impacts the college and what you do as an institution. Again, when I mentioned about being urgent, why we couldn't wait, we couldn't take our time with change. Memphis continues to be the second poorest metropolitan statistical area with a 1 million+ population, and Memphis also comes in second place in child poverty among cities with a 500,000+ population. So again, sense of urgency. The setting, so at the college, Southwest, we're located in Memphis, of course. That's Shelby County and then Fayette County. So Shelby County is the urban center, Memphis, and then you have Fayette County. There are some rural areas, small rural areas, part of our service area. We have 7 locations throughout, so we're everywhere. We like to say we are the community's college, because we're everywhere in the city. It came about a merger, so just a little of the history to help you understand the whole, some of the challenges that we face. We had a merger, so back in 2000, there was a merger between Shelby State Community College and State Technical Institute. Shelby State was the predominantly African American school, and State Tech was not. It was the white school, just to put it very, very bluntly. So when the merger occurred, Shelby State Tech was really very well thought of because of its career and technical focus, and business and industry really loved Shelby State Tech. The merger came, and the whole emphasis on workforce development was not as pronounced as it had been. And so that is where you had business and industry had concerns about this whole understanding of what is a community college, because their only relationship or only information about a community college had been this merger, and what they had previously had a good relationship with State Tech and workforce development. That was not the case anymore. And so that's a little bit of the history, the background, and some of that setting, and that we have to really address the workforce and the business concerns about what is a community college. We are a predominantly Black institution. Well over 67% or so of my students are African American, predominantly female population, highest Pell eligible population in the state. When I arrived, the processes were very dependent on which campus a student received information and their services. So for example, if you were you worked at Shelby State, then that employee gave information to students based on what Shelby State did. And if you worked at State Tech, that's the information you got from students. So imagine what that's like being a student, and depending on which campus, it depended on what you information you received on anything. When I first started, I had the staff to kind of line up and just said, just tell me what the processes look like for a student, kind of going in order. It was like a Laurel and Hardy exercise, because they were bumping into each other. And I said, okay, never mind. This is not gonna work. They didn't even know what to tell students. And so they were working in silos, not only academic affairs and student affairs, but Shelby State staff, State Tech staff. So thankfully, I had a report from Huron Consulting Group. Prior to my arrival, the institution had worked with Huron Consulting Group to look at the processes and to do an environmental scan. And so they looked at internal and external stakeholders, and they identified a service to students from pre-admissions forward as vital need of improvement. Admissions processes and customer services all broken. The college had experienced a 7-year decline in enrollment and the lowest graduation rates in the state. In addition to that, there was an urgent call. At the time, you may have heard of Tennessee's kind of called Drive to 55, where 55% of Tennesseans would have post-secondary credential by 2025. And so about 2 weeks into my arrival in Tennessee, I was summoned nicely to the governor's mansion to talk about Drive to 55 and how important it was for Shelby County to meet its goals. And we're an outcomes-based funding state, and so the two ways that we receive our revenue is through tuition and fees and through state appropriations. State appropriations, there are about 12 metrics. One of them includes how you retain your students and graduation and all of that. So the college was struggling. Again, sense of urgency. This is what our processes look like. We borrowed this from another college once we got more into our work that I talked to you about. But this is pretty much what it was like. And so no wonder our students were confused. No wonder our faculty and staff were confused, because we just pretty much say, okay, you start here, just figure this out, and hopefully you get here. Students complain, staff complain, but it continued like this. So again, urgent work. By the numbers, so fall 2015, 7-year decline in enrollment, 47% fall to fall student retention, 30% fall to fall part-time student retention, 5% graduation rate. Equity gaps, 54% fall to fall retention rate for our Caucasian students and 45% fall to fall retention rate for African American students. So that's where we were in fall 2015. So what we had to do, again, this whole sense of urgency, the what? The video, if you had seen it, was of our student talking about what our work was, and she couched our work into the what, and then the what next, the why, and then the what next. So that's kind of where the what is. Sorry you missed that introduction, but that's kind of giving you where we how it was organized. So the what? So what we had to do was, I said, we need a big audacious goal. We can't just tinker around the edges. We can't just look at one part of the institution, because it's all broken. And again, remember the setting where we are. We have a very high poverty rate. And for our students, for children, we really need to do something. So let's do something big and audacious. And so we needed to focus on redesigning, reinventing, and resetting the student experience. We have to do it all. We have to look at all of it. The Huron report has said everyone is saying it's all messed up, so we need to fix it. So we joined Achieving the Dream, and you probably are familiar with Achieving the Dream, so I won't go and spend time on that because I really would like to get some listeners to probably know about Achieving the Dream. And we use as our framework and our guiding work, to guide our work, build the ICAT, that institutional capacity tool, that it builds institutional capacity in 7 areas. And so this is the framework: teaching and learning, engagement and communication, strategy and planning, policies and practices, leadership and vision, data and technology and equity, all designed to create this student-focused culture. So for 6 years, this has been our work, looking at building capacity in all of these areas, starting with that whole redesign of our student experiences. So there's a call to action. October 2016 is when we launched this whole Achieving the Dream. We reviewed the student processes from recruitment to completion. It was intentionally structured. It does, oh, there it goes. More than 200 faculty, staff, and administrators, students, and community partners said, okay, what do we need to do? And that's the beautiful thing that I say about Southwest. And I've worked in a lot of different places, and I do say this openly because it's the truth. It's the best place that I've worked. Because even though we have so many challenges, people tend to want to jump in and fix it. And they say, okay, what can I do? And so I was so pleased that number of people just pretty much day one said, okay, what can we do? And that was great. So we all worked together. We created review committees to look at all of the processes from pre-admissions all the way to completion. And where are the gaps? So we had all these process maps that we looked at, and it was a long process, although I will say I gave them a short time frame. We started in October. I said by May, I need to have where we're going, because you know how we do in higher ed. We love our committees. We love to meet, and I'm not real big on meeting just for the sake of meeting. Again, it's an urgent situation. I always say this, we have a lot of smart people in this room. Everybody at this campus, we have a lot of intelligent people. Surely, all these smart folks won't have to take years and years to figure out problems. Too many smart people here. We can get this done. And so the committee chairs facilitated the discussions. It wasn't dictated. I don't believe in kind of a top down, because I want it to be organic. I want people to help to build the college that you want to see. Again, trying to break down silos. So again, remember I said it was State Tech and Shelby State. The other part of the reason that I wanted people to come together, and I was so pleased that they did, was because instead of having the State Tech way or the Shelby State way, I wanted the Southwest way. Yes?
You showed your opening slide that said 7 campuses?
Yes.
How many were Shelby? How many were the Tech?
So let me say this. The two large, we have two large campuses, the Macon Cove campus, which used to be the State Tech, and the other large one is the Union Avenue, which used to be Shelby State, and then the other centers, they're smaller.
They're
smaller. So the bulk of the employees will be housed either at the Macon Cove campus, which was State Tech, or the Union Avenue campus in the city, which is Shelby State. So I don't have the numbers in terms of the 200, how many.
Yeah. Did the centers have full-time employees or?
Yes. Yeah, they have full-time employees.
A handful.
A handful, yes, probably about at the most 20, 30 at each center, but they came from either Shelby State or State Tech. So depending on where they were, they had history, and so they still, and they were disconnected as well. So it was just a nightmare for our students. So again, over 30 process maps with recommendations for improvement. So they were looking at the processes and then recommending how we improve. And so again, the Southwest process map to success, it was not just about creating a better experience for our students, but also bringing us together as a college so that we can be Southwest and not State Tech or Shelby State. So we had so many people, even the committees, we didn't want them to be too large, and they were structured so that we had Shelby State folks mixing with State Tech people as well, so that they can get to know each other. So that process was even important. But we had too many people to have committees that were manageable. So what we had was a review committee, and we did a gallery walk. So all the process maps, and this is just some pictures of the process maps that all the committees that they worked on, so that those other folks that wanted to be a part of this work could have a part in it. We had a gallery walk, so we had it in our library and throughout the whole library, upstairs, downstairs, just to process maps, and we had the review committee just to go through and do what it says. They reviewed, and they were also able to participate, ask questions, and then give their recommendations as well. And so what we did, again, 6 years of work in just a few slides, we said we need to change how we do business. So from all of this work, the recommendations that came forward that we implemented was a case management model approach to our students. What we were doing was we were saying to students, just go to your portal and find your information. Well, many first generation students have never heard of what a portal is. What is that? But we were just saying, just go ahead. As I said, that first diagram, just start and get there however you can. Although we thought we were helping, we really weren't. So case management model, so students, when they start now, they know who their enrollment specialist is, that kind of holds their hand as much as it or as little as they need. They know that person's name. They have a financial aid specialist that they know that person's name, and they have an advisor. So we don't say just call this number, we say here is your team. It's a triage approach, case management model. Professional advisors and faculty mentors, we had, at first it was all faculty were doing the advising, and that just wasn't working. Our faculty were 9-month contract, and so in the summer, students didn't have anyone to talk to. So we went to a professional advising model with faculty still serving as faculty mentors. So those faculty that are in our CTE programs, who are in technical programs, they want to be hands-on and help the students with careers, and so that's fine. They serve as faculty mentors, and we love that. It works really nice in the faculty. I don't know that I'd ever really gotten a round of applause and a standing ovation from faculty until I told them that they didn't have to be professional advisors and that they could teach. Well, teach, yes. Being a former faculty member, I would have appreciated that as well. And then those that wanted to focus on advising, they could. Again, we have academic maps, establish clear pathways for students. I won't go through all of them, I just highlight some in red. We added a mental health counselor and a social services counselor. What we have been doing previously, they said, just go to the University of Memphis if you have some mental health issues. Now imagine that. You're in the middle of a crisis and you're told to, most of our students take public transportation. It's not the greatest public transportation system in the world, and we just say get on the bus and go on over there to the University of Memphis. Was not working for our students. So we hired a mental health counselor. We also have a social services counselor because we can't be all things. We can't provide everything. And we do have a city that there are resources in the city. And so this social services counselor connects the community with the college, so that if there's transportation, all the other issues that our students face, it's still not enough, but it's better than what it was. So I'm not here to say that we're perfect, that we've solved everything. We have not. We are a work in progress, but it's a lot better than it was, and we continue to get better. So pretty much year 1 and 2, we were looking at how we focus from a student affairs perspective. We've moved from year 3 to, let's not talk about it as ATD, Achieving the Dream. This is what we do. It's not another initiative. It's not a standalone project. This is what we do. It's student success. So we really don't say a lot about achieving the dream. It's just our student success work. The recommendations from year 1 and 2 were incorporated into the college's strategic plan. I remember a faculty member said, Dr. Hall, we've done work before where we really work together and nothing ever happens. So is this going to be that? And I said, no, it's not. She said, you promise. Promise. I would say Scouts Honor, never been Scout, so I can't say that, but I can say I promise you, it won't. And it didn't. It become that. We incorporated that. That became our strategic plan. Because why do all that work and have all these recommendations on how to fix things and improve, and you have people that actually do the work telling you what needs to happen? And that's what I really believe in. I mean, I do a lot of work and I value the role of administration, but these folks that are on the front lines that actually see the students every day, they really can give a lot of information about what's working. And they always tease me because I come back from these conferences, and even in the middle of the conference I'm texting, and it's, oh Lord, she said it again. She's at the conference. She's getting all these ideas, and that's great. And I do send those back because we can always learn. But they're actually in the front line, so I really have to hear from them. And so we incorporated what they said into our strategic plan, and we made it a part of governance. So we have a student success council, and that council, it still includes faculty and staff, student affairs, academic affairs, students, and we monitor the work that we have started with our processes from pre-admission to completion. We then move into looking at, okay, student affairs is doing great work. Let's look at what academic affairs and how this whole student success work is, because you can't leave out of the classroom. I think I've seen some research that says about 80% of the time students are on campus, they're in the classroom. So we have to get faculty more engaged. They were already engaged, we need to get them more engaged and look at what's happening in the classroom. And so that's been our work, looking at equity and teaching and learning, looking at disaggregating the data with our African American students and our white students, and seeing our top 20 highest enrolled gatekeeper classes. African American students are not doing well in them at all. And so faculty have really been great, and I'll show a few things that they've been involved in a few minutes. So fall 2019, by the numbers, we've had a 4.4% increase in headcount, 5% increase in full-time student retention, 8% increase in part-time student retention, and we increased our graduation rate by 8%. Again, we are happy about the fall retention rate for Caucasian students increased 8%, which is great, and it increased 5% for African American students. It's still that gap between the two. Still working hard, still working hard. But there's been some improvement from 2015. Again, I talked already about institutionalizing ATD into student success, and I've kind of talked already about how we made that a part of what we do. The Student Success Council representative sit on the president's cabinet, and we talk as a college about our work. And this is just somewhat, remember when I went back and I talked about the iCademy, building institutional capacity in those 7 areas. Well, these are the 7 areas, and we just keep track of the work and making sure that from teaching and learning perspective, what are we doing to make sure we increasing capacity for our faculty and staff, equity and inclusion, strategy and planning, data technology, leadership and vision, policies, procedure, engagement, and communication. All of this, again, this guides our work. So from day one of joining Achieving the Dream, we've said, in order to be a strong institution that's centered on student success, equitable student success, we need to make sure we're strong in these 7 areas, and that's been our work for 6 years. And so if it doesn't fall into one of these areas, especially from a budgetary perspective, it doesn't happen. Because we can't do it all. We don't have a lot of money. Again, tuition and fees, state appropriation, and then think about what the pandemic has done. So it's even less money, so we have to be very intentional about what we do. Which is why I need to also show them that I'm at a conference. So the what summary, so we focus on increasing enrollment and retention, focus on improving processes and procedures, focus on equity and teaching and learning, but we move from the what we do to the why we do it. And so I attended a conference in 2019 in DC, Ed Trust, Social Mobility, Race and Higher Education Convening. That's me on the panel, where we talked about, so education is supposed to be this ticket to the middle class, but is it? Is it? And so we can't just be proud of increasing enrollment. We have to, that's great, but to what end? What are we doing this for? And so that's where we continue to be. And we have to understand that zip codes matter. That inequality starts in the crib. And you think about a child who may have gone to a babysitter and its grandmother, versus a child that's gone to a Montessori preschool. That's a different preparation for kindergarten. And so inequality starts in the crib. Their advantages and disadvantages perpetuate themselves. So well-connected parents, legacy admissions to premier schools, no student debt, all of these are what our students face. And so we have to understand that does matter. But all of these do matter. Address inequities present in higher education, and that's something that we don't want to talk about because we talked earlier about George Floyd, and we can talk about criminal justice system, and we can talk about healthcare disparities, but there are inequities in higher education as well. Some of our policies and procedures serve as barriers to students. And so those are the hard conversations that we talk about, like the policies on grade appeals. And we've discovered at our institution that only faculty serve on the grade appeal, and there's really never been a faculty that's overturned another faculty's grade. Now, you know and I know that there probably should have been along the way. But if only faculty focus on faculty, that might be an issue. So those are the hard conversations that we have prepared the college. We've had a lot of conferences and dialogue about equity and inequities. And so we don't have the luxury of just pointing our fingers at other institutions. We need to look at higher ed as well. These are just a few of the ways that faculty have been involved, examining data on student success dash training that they participated in, examining policies and procedures, developing culturally responsive teaching. We've awarded a $2.1 million Title III Strengthening Institutions Programs grant to look at equity and inclusion, and then Gateway Faculty Fellows. Again, I'm cramming a lot of 6 years in this, but I want to get to some questions. But this is where faculty have
been involved in this work, and they've been wonderful. Hard conversations, tough conversations, but great conversations.
What is the Gateway Faculty Fellows?
So those are the fellows that look at our high enrolled courses and how are we keeping students out. What do we need to do to redesign the curriculum? So one of the things that they've done is gone on field trips in Memphis and looked at how can you bring Memphis into the classroom? How do we make our courses relevant?
So it's a fellowship given to active faculty to go reinvent themselves more to
Yes.
see what they can do.
Yes.
Good.
Yes. Yes. So we've had some recognition that we're kind of proud of, so I want to share it with you. So 2020 ATD Leader College, and we're really proud. We were awarded the 2021 Bellwether Award winner for Planning, Governance, and Finance in this area for our work. So really, we really need it. Someone said, well, you're just chasing shiny objects. Well, no, not really. But because we've had such a self-esteem issue, the city of Memphis has a self-esteem issue. And with the poverty, I guess there could be all sorts of reasons why. The college really needed to feel good about its work. And so I'm so proud of them, and I get so much joy when I see them being proud to be at Southwest. As opposed to still wanting to hold on to the Shelby State or the State Tech. I'm really proud that they see themselves as a great place to work. Still have work to do, but I'm proud of them. And so these awards help them, it helps us all to feel good and to be affirmed that what we're doing is the right thing. So what next? Our strategic planning. We're in our mid-year cycle, so that 2015 to 2025 strategic plan. The TVR system, we're part of a system of 13 community colleges, 27 technical colleges. TVR, the Tennessee Board of Regents, has revised its plan mid-year, and so we are now in the process of doing that as well. Here are all of our plans. Another thing is we have so many different plans across the campus, we need to bring it all in. We need to make sure the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. And so here are all of the various plans. I've brought together various representatives of these different plans so we can all talk about, okay, how do we go forward together? Not because you can't talk about having new academic programs if you don't know what's in the facilities master plan. You have to have a building that can support that new infrastructure. The infrastructure has to be able to support the new programs. So we have to talk to each other. And again, it's a process. Helping people to understand that it's not just, okay, I'm going to see things from my myopic viewpoint. We have to see things across the college. We are the community's college, as we like to say, but we have to also make sure we act like a community internally as well. So the work has been about changing our processes, being more responsive to our students, but also changing our culture. And it's been a great ride. And so that's the process. That's 6 years of our redesign, reinvent, reset Southwest. Again, I'm sorry I had to go so quickly through it, but I really wanted to be able to just kind of answer any questions that you may have about our work. And again, just being honest, we still have a lot of work to go. I mean, and to do. We moved from 5% to about 13% graduation rate in 5 years. Again, we're proud, but we're not satisfied. Still losing too many of our students. I said no other industry would be proud to say, hey, 13%. The rest of them we don't know. So it's not good enough, but we are continuing to build and improve ourselves. And so coming to conferences and learning all different ways of doing things helps us to get better. So thank you for being here, and hopefully you had a picture.
You did a great job.
And I hope you have my good side. You have my good side, right?
That's awesome.
I only tweet good things.
You did a great job.
Thank you so much.
I'm always really interested in strategic plans of other community colleges. So you have a really well-defined strategic plan. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of how you keep it moving and how does your particular institution work that way? I think I'm Stacey Atkinson. I come from Ivy Tech in Indiana. So I'm one of 19, and 19 of us work really hard, 19 different places across the state, to keep one strategic plan and keep our eye on the prize of all 8 of our goals. And I'm always real interested in how other institutions tackle that with their large staff base.
Well, I'll start from the TBR perspective. What has been great, I served on the TBR Strategic Planning Council. And so we come together and we look at not only with our campuses, but with business and industry leaders. We're very involved. Our Board of Regents were very involved in the planning and the revision of this mid-year cycle. And it was a really wonderful process to talk about, okay, here are the things that we had talked about in 2015, but now things have changed so much with COVID. I think equity was really discussed. A large portion of our meetings talked about equity. And do we make equity like one of the priorities, or is it supposed to, should we just have it go run through every theme? And that's what we ended up doing. We talked more this time about our impact on the community, kind of that, so what? So, and I really love that conversation we had, because it was, we talk a lot about enrollment and all that, but what faculty and staff also wanted to know was, are we just chasing numbers? What's our real work here? And our real work is to change communities. And we really do that. That's what we do. And so how can we focus more on that? And so one of the goals is looking at workforce and community development. Again, that's at the system level. So that's pretty much how the system works. TBR really doesn't mandate us to do everything that's in its plan, but it's a guide for us. And so, however, so for us, we still say focus on students, focus on community, focus on excellence. And as long as that's a part of what TBR's plan is, that's how it is really monitored. So there's really no, let's see if Southwest is doing exactly what we tell them to do, because what I like about TBR is they respect the differences across the state. So I'm in West Tennessee. It is very different in many ways from East Tennessee. From a demographic, from a racial demographic, from a poverty, it's similar. And so that's how it works from that standpoint. Now, from our college, we can organize, or we can build our strategic plans alignment with TBR, but being very sensitive to our different cities, our different geographical locations. I hope that.
Yeah, I think that we battle that. There's like 7 of us from Ivy Tech in here, and I think we battle that, in that we're all in very different places and stages of the state of Indiana.
Right.
Yet there are 8 goals with metrics behind each of them.
Right.
That we're all trying to achieve. And I think individually we look at differences and demographic differences and poverty differences.
Yes.
But I'm always really curious, how do I make that work, and then he make it work completely somewhere else? So thank you for that.
Right.
That did help.
You're welcome.
So I have 2 questions. One, I want to congratulate you on how you started your evaluation, your assessment of your institution and all the different committees. I think that is great. And you mixed them up from both the former technical college and the former community college, and kind of had them do that. One of the things that I always struggled with as a college president was getting like the administrative assistants involved and getting the maintenance staff involved. Were you able to get custodial and all these other folks involved in the planning processes and the assessment process when you started?
Well, not as much as I would have liked. I would be honest with you on that. I'll tell you, one of the things that's been intentionally reaching out to our classified staff. So we have, so part of our governance, and I didn't have a picture of that, we have faculty senate that sits on the president's cabinet. We have the PASO, which is our professional administrative, and then we have our classified, and they call themselves SASO, SASO. And that includes our custodial, our physical plant, and our clerical administrative. And they are not as active. And I've reached out to them, we reach out. Some of what I face is history of feeling as though they aren't a part of what we talk about. So I talked with the physical plant director, and I've talked with physical plant staff, and they said, we feel like we set up for events, but we're not a part of events. So we have an annual awards for employees, and that's what they said. I said, why don't y'all sit down? Well, we don't feel like we are here to sit down, we just set up the tables and chairs. And so we've been intentional about having in our award ceremony, having a physical plant award to make sure that they're part of it. And I've asked the director of physical plant to, we have a management position available, and there's a young man who's been in our physical plant for a long time. Why can't we look at him and give him a chance? So we've made those overtures, especially with that classification of employee as well as our administrative assistants. For some reason, and again, it's not just for some reason, I think his history has given them a reason to feel not a part of the process. And so we don't have officers for our say-so. So I have all the other officers filled, and I just said to my staff a few weeks ago, we don't have officers for say-so, which is our classified and our physical plant association. We have to get officers, and so what do we need to do to help them to understand they need to be at the table? So there's the overtures made, it's just how do we help, and if you have experience on helping me with that, I'd appreciate it. Having people to not feel as though all we do, we're just the help.
But I appreciate you saying that, because I struggled with that too as president. But yet, Dr. Darden's research and all the interviews she's done on college campuses, it's usually that frontline people, the people who are working behind the scenes, who really have the best opportunity to sell your institution and to make a difference.
That's right.
So you know, all of us in our roles, this is something I think we need to always be aware of, is to get those folks engaged, even though they don't want to necessarily.
Right,
but they're going, if you could relate it to what they do and how important it is. And I love the fact that you're giving them an award every year, and I think that is great. That's good. The other question I had for you was the alignment. You went from those committees and took those reports and folded into your strategic plan.
Yes.
And that is great, because then they can see the action in place.
Yes, and it's like, this is your plan, so we're gonna monitor it, and this is what you said. And it's great, and we have an annual, we call it a process jamboree. And those are fun. Well, it depends on how you define fun. But those can be fun, because we talk about, okay, so we said we're gonna do this, how is it working? And so sometimes my senior staff feels a little bit uncomfortable, because, you know, we can go to these conferences, and I always say, we're out here at the conferences saying all this great work, and what I don't want is for people to visit any of the campuses and have the staff say, yeah, but, right? Because, you know, it's easy for a president to say, oh yeah, we did this and did that, but then you have your enrollment specialists there overwhelmed. And so what we found is that they were overwhelmed. So we have our enrollment specialists at the center, for example. I have one, the enrollment has increased at one of my suburban locations. And I have a enrollment specialist there who has 1,000 students on her caseload.
Wow.
So I can talk about how great we are doing, but this woman is overwhelmed, and so we have to get additional support so that she can, because there's no way that one person can manage 1,000 students. So when we're looking at staffing, those process jamborees help us to hear from the staff, as I call them, the boots on the ground. So you tell me, these processes that we put in place, what's working? And it's really nice because they'll say, well, this works, but we need to tweak this. Or I'm getting overwhelmed because I have so many students and I can't give them the same level of attention as you know, as I'd like to. So what do we need to do? So when we're looking at budgeting, we're saying, okay, then we need another enrollment specialist. We need another financial aid specialist. And so we make those priorities, because if we're bragging about what we're doing, but if the staff who are actually doing the work, if they're stressed out because they can't manage the load, or if there's a process, so we look at how do we help from a, maybe it's not an actual human being, but maybe there's a process. And so with the CRM, we're getting ready to get one. So it's just all these ways that you just, you know, it's an iterative process. It's not one and done. And when Dr. Darden was talking about doing divisional assessments, I thought, maybe that's something that we need to do, is to kind of look and see, you know, kind of 5 years, 6 years in, what else could we do differently, especially with being impacted by COVID. We've just been devastated with that 24% enrollment decline, 30% for our African American male population, 29% for our African American female population. We've been hit really hard. So we're just saying we have to look at everything that we possibly could do to get these students back. Question?
Can you talk a little bit more about the enrollment specialists and what they do?
Yeah, so they are our, so when Dr. Darden talked about the proprietary schools, that's one of those things that they do well in terms of getting students in. And so enrollment specialists, they help the student from beginning and there. So you have a recruiter, but then you send them to the enrollment specialist, and anything from helping them to understand terminology, to getting on the portal, to just enrolling, all the documentation that they need. And once they've gotten enrolled into that the college, they're passing them off to financial aid, but still staying there as a resource, and then making sure they get to their advising for, you know, all their coursework and the matriculation throughout. So the enrollment specialist pretty much just wraps his or her arm around the student and said, okay, I'm going to help you as much or as little as you need. So that's taken a little bit from the proprietary model, but also from trios. If you're familiar with trio programs, they work. And so that's where we are. We're looking now. Trio programs work. We know they work, and they're successful with under-resourced populations. But we continue to say it's too expensive to replicate. But it's expensive to do what we're doing now.
Yeah.
So which we're going to pay now or pay later. So what we're trying to figure out is, how do we have a trio model to scale? Because it works. You know, if we never go to another conference, we know that this works for that population. It's just expensive. So how do we address that?
Thank you.
One more question.
Congratulations on everything what you have done so far. Right now, Ivy Tech, 19 campuses. We have 3 cohorts. We are going through the guided pathways.
Yes.
Since you started back in 2015, is there anything you would change the way you started, and you want to say, I wish I could have done something differently?
I wish that I would have increased the focus on academics earlier. We focused more on the student experience from a student affairs perspective. And we got in maybe 2 years into the process. We looked more at teaching and learning and equity and inclusion. I wish that I had known to think about getting faculty involved earlier. And that's what you'll hear from Achieving the Dream will say the same thing, that it look more at the student affairs processes and we don't look as much as academic. But if the majority of the time students are in the classroom, I wish that I had focused more on the classroom. We're doing that now, but how much further along could we have been from a retention perspective if I focused more on, okay, not just the student affairs, but the academic affairs as well. So I would do that differently.
Thank you.
Let's give her another big round of applause.
Thank you.
I will tell you, I think that's a great question and a great answer for those of us who've been in this game for a long time. You gotta fix the access piece. You gotta fix the access piece, and that's what you realized is access was critical, and that people were being turned away just from the way your employees were acting when the students came to the door. But if you don't marry the academic side of it, of the success, because once they get in the door, 80% of their time is going to be in your classroom. So the faculty have to take that responsibility on and say, thank you for getting 15 students in my class instead of 10. Thank you for that. Now I'll take on the responsibility of making sure I keep them all the way through. And you can marry the responsibilities of it. For the questions on strategic planning that came back here, my background is institutional research and effectiveness, and I really admire what you've done. This is certainly some best practices here, especially turning those committee reports into the strategic plan, and then the annual review, and not being afraid to tweak it. Not being, too many times we do strategic plans and put them up on the shelf and we say, we'll look at it again in 5 years and we'll do an assessment. But to do it annually and then revising it as needed, that is truly a best practice. You can see why her institution won the awards that they've won. Okay, we got Joe May coming up next. I hope you'll stick around for that. Thank you very much.
Let me know.
Yes, I see.